Hi everybody, it's Leela from Miss Kiss Creations. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be showing you how I created this 3D geode glittered tumbler. Like always, I'll have all of my materials posted in my description below, including some coupon codes and links. There will also be a list of help videos for all of my beginner crafters. I do want to let y'all know that this was my very first time creating this 3D geode tumbler, so I wanted to do it with y'all, and I think it turned out pretty cute. With all that being said, let's go ahead and get started on this tumbler. I'm working with a 20-ounce stainless steel tumbler from Maker Flow Crafts. I've wiped my tumbler down with 91% alcohol, and I'm going to be painting my tumbler with a white acrylic paint. I typically spray paint my tumblers. The reason why I'm not using spray paint is because it's raining outside and I cannot spray paint my tumbler at the moment. I'm going to be using a sponge brush or a Mod Podge brush just to paint the tumbler. This does not have to be perfect. I just want some kind of matte or like a rough surface for my tumbler, just so I don't work with that stainless steel or shiny base. And then I'm going to do the bottom. I'm going to set this aside, allow this to air dry for about 15 to 20 minutes, and then I'll return. My tumbler is completely dry, and like I mentioned, it's not perfect. I even kind of smudged a little area on the side there. I'm going to be using some vase fillers I found from Michaels. I will be linking these in my description below. The brand is Ashland, so if you do not have Michaels in your area, it's just our local craft store, and you can see they are decorative fillers. I purchased two types. I purchased the blue, and then I have some clear crystal. I think they had some pink and purple as well, so I thought I'd go with a blue and white theme. I'm going to be first applying the crystals or the glass with a glue gun, and then at the end I'm going to be sealing it with Mod Podge. So if you do use your E6000 or any type of super glue that you want to use, then go ahead and use that adhesive. At the end, I'm going to be sealing it in with epoxy, so it doesn't matter which adhesive you use. And then to add more color to the crystals or the geode, I'm going to be using some blue alcohol ink. I don't know which colors I'm going to be using just yet, but whenever I use them, I'll be sure to let you know the names, and the alcohol ink color names will be linked in my description below as well. This part is completely optional. I'm going to be taking a pencil and I'm just going to draw kind of a squiggly line area. That's going to show approximately where I'm going to be placing the geode. I don't want the entire tumbler to be geode because this is going to be 3D. So I want to be able to have somebody still be able to hold it. So if I make the entire tumbler geode, then you're not going to be able to hold it in place. So I'm trying to just make like part of it geode. So maybe the top on here, and then maybe add some on the bottom here. So I'm just taking my mechanical pencil and I'm just adding a line like so. I didn't overthink this. I'm literally just drawing a squiggly line. These lines are just guidelines. It's not exactly where I'll be placing them. I just wanted to have an idea. And that's why I chose to use the mechanical pencil and not like permanent marker, just in case I don't go over the line. I don't want to be able to see that permanent marker line. I have my craft towel down, and then I'm going to sprinkle out some clear and then white shards of glass or pieces of glass. I don't know what these things are called. I do have Gorilla Glue on hand, so I might be using this instead of the hot glue gun, because sometimes, just like the E6000, I don't like how stringy it gets and it gets kind of everywhere. So the Gorilla Glue is also an option if you have that on hand. So just like as you would anything else, you're just going to place that glue on and then place the gems on like so. So what I'm going to do is kind of start in the middle of my blob and just place those pieces on in no specific way. I'm just putting them on wherever I can place them, to be honest with you. Like I mentioned, this is going to be my first time doing this, so let's see how it goes. The hot glue is already getting stringy and it's already all over my arm. The key to this is trying to have them flush against each other. I don't want any like awkward spacing between the gems. So I'm trying to make it like they're pushed against each other. So I don't want any of that tumbler kind of shown. Another thing that I'm learning as I'm going is it looks like if you place them flat, it's not going to have that effect that I specifically want. So I'm trying to find the tiny ones. So this is how small this one is. I'm trying to find the smallest ones and place them on its side. Because if you do purchase this pack of the vase fillers, then you're going to notice that there's kind of like a flat side. So that would be the flat side, and then this is kind of the jagged edge side. I'm trying to place it on the jagged edge side. I don't want it to be placed flat because then it's not going to look like the crystals. It's going to look kind of like you see here, just like a flat surface. So these right here, I don't know if the camera's picking it up, but that's more of like how a real crystal will look compared to the one right here where my pinky's on. This is more flat. So I think I'm going to try to lift those up. So I'm going to finish this little area with only the blue gems. I'm going to keep the white aside because I think I'm going to do the white just on the outside. And since I am using alcohol ink at the end, I can always color those gems at the end. I am back, guys, and I've placed the first set of crushed glass or gems on the tumbler. You can see how pretty it looks. No, it does not have the full effect of a geode yet, but trust the process. We are almost finished with this section. I'm debating whether to make this a little bigger or to keep it like so and then put the white gems around it. I also have to do this side, so I just want to give some tips that I found while I'm doing this. If you see right here, like I mentioned earlier, I added those gems flat up top. So what I did was I took smaller crushed glass or the gems and I just added it on top of those flat ones because it just helped it give it more dimension and it kind of blended in more and it made it look more realistic. So if you do have those little flattened areas, you could see right here I have a little flattened one, add tiny little gems there and you can see how it looks now. I'm now going to start on the bottom part, and then I don't know why I traced on the bottom underneath the tumbler. I'm obviously not going to be adding gems to the bottom because it's going to be lopsided and then it's not going to lay flat. But I'm going to skip through this part only because I showed y'all how to do the top part. It's going to be the same exact way for the bottom part. I just want to save time for the video. So I'll see y'all soon. Hey guys, I'm back with the tumbler. You can see I have put all of that crushed glass on this tumbler. It is so cute already. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to use the clear glass, and I'm going to just kind of line it around the blue part. So I'm going to do the top first, and then I'll probably do the bottom second. Y'all, I just cut my finger, so make sure you are careful with these glass shards. Don't have a heavy hand like me. I'm going to clean this up and then put a band-aid on it, and we're gonna keep rolling. The top part is finished with the clear gems, and now I'm going to move on to the bottom. Like earlier, I'm going to skip through this part just to save on time with the video. I am finished adding those white crystals to the outside of the bottom part and the top part. Now, a tip that I wanted to show y'all, or at least tell y'all, is whenever I did the white area, I did one line of the crystals and then I went in and I just kind of filled in the either blank or areas that looked kind of thin. So like you see here, I just added along the blue first, and then I added those tiny pieces to kind of fill in that area. So some areas are thin like this and other areas are kind of thick. Just like a real geode, it is always kind of random and not quite quote unquote perfect. For my next step, I'm going to leave my crystals near me just in case I need them. Now I'm going to go in with using the alcohol ink, and I'm kind of nervous for this because I don't want to mess this up, and I'm not really good with using alcohol ink and not trying to get it everywhere. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose some colors. I'm choosing denim, aquamarine, and sailboat blue. I might not use all three of those colors, but I just have those on hand. The idea is to put the denim in the middle to kind of have that dark area. So in the center of that geode, same with the center of this geode, and then kind of have the either one lighter color near the white, or two lighter colors near the white. I have my gloves on to protect my hands from the alcohol ink, and then now we're just going to go in. So I don't know if I'm going to need a paintbrush for this step or if it's just going to kind of absorb like glitter does. But we are going to see how well this takes. And if this doesn't work, then my next, or I should say my plan B, is going to be acrylic paint. So if you don't have alcohol ink on hand, I'm sure you can use acrylic paint because, well, you can use acrylic paint on basically anything. So it looks like that the alcohol ink is actually doing a great job. You can see that nice dark color, and I can already kind of see like that geode effect. So I know everybody likes to do their geode differently. If you want to put that dark circle right here, you can. I like to put kind of a line of the darkness in the middle first and then work around it. But I know some people like more of the circular. So whichever way you want to do yours, do it the way that you feel more comfortable and whichever way you like. So I am trying to put small spots, or I should say just like I kind of do like one drop at a time, see where it lands, and then kind of work around it because I don't want it to drip. So I'm leaving this cup flat, so like parallel on its side, parallel to the desk. I'm not putting it up and down because I need the alcohol ink to kind of dry and not pour down. So if I had this standing up, the alcohol ink might pour down to the white, so I'm trying to avoid that. You can already see some areas where the alcohol ink is bleeding through. I think that's going to be fine. I don't think that's going to be that big of a deal. What I'm more concerned about if I add some blue near the white to see how that's going to work. So I might not even add that second blue. I might just keep the color how it is and then keep adding this dark blue, the denim in the middle. So let's see how this turns out first, and then we'll go from there. So I'm just going to keep dabbing around this tumbler. Remember how quickly alcohol ink dries, so just add some drops of it, let it sit a little bit, and then go back in and add some more drops, because even though you can't see the alcohol ink kind of cruising its way through those little nooks and crannies, it is doing that. So just be patient with it. Let the alcohol ink dry, and then you should be fine. So I'm going to fast forward through this small part, and then I'll see y'all soon. All right, so here's the top so far. I really like this, and I've decided not to add any more alcohol ink colors around this tumbler, only because I have the light blue for the crystals, and then I just added the dark blue. So for that, I think it has that geode effect. I think it's given me that look. So I'm going to wait until this dries until I move on to the bottom. So it should take about 3 to 4 minutes to have this alcohol ink dry, and then we'll move on to the other side. Let this dry, take its time drying, because if you flip this over, alcohol ink tends to run, like I told y'all. So I don't want it to run around the cup on y'all or run into this clear, because I'm really trying to avoid any alcohol ink going inside this clear area. So this side is completely dried that I know of. It's been about 10 minutes. So now I'm going to flip it and do the next side. So like I said, I'm just going to focus on the middle. I'm doing like 1 drop at a time so we can get inside those nooks and crannies and have that alcohol ink really spread. Now, I don't know if y'all can see, but I see kind of the alcohol kind of sitting on one of those gems. If you want, you can take yourself a paintbrush, maybe a silicone brush. Let's see if that works. Yeah, I think the silicone brush would probably be the easiest because it's very flexible. So if you want, you can kind of brush some of that alcohol ink on so it doesn't go on, like it doesn't like spread as much. So this side it spread a lot, but it kind of makes that cool fading effect. So I do like that about it. But if it does sit and kind of pool on top of those crystals, then that could be an option too. So I added those little areas there. And then just repeating that process. So I'm not really thinking about where exactly I'm adding this. I'm just adding it wherever, just randomly around those that little geo spot. I'm all finished adding the alcohol ink, and I kind of just add it and I just let it go wherever it wants to go. So look how cute this is so far. Like I always mention, make this your own. So if you want to add more of the blue colors, you can go ahead and add them. If you want to add maybe some black in the middle to really make it look that deep color right in the middle, go ahead and do that. I kind of like to keep it kind of like the blue crystal look. And then you could see how this side turns out as well. So now for my next step, I am going to be adding some glitter to the rest of the tumbler. And I think I'm going to go with a nice blue for the rest of the tumbler. So I'm going to prep that, and then I'll see y'all in a bit. All right, so I'm moving on to the glitter part. And initially I wanted to glitter around the geode white, but I've always done white geode tumblers, so I thought I'd change it up some and keep that blue theme going. So I'm going to add some acrylic paint and some Mod Podge. I am using Apple Barrel from Walmart. I am using the color Sky Blue, and then I'm going to be adding a little bit of acrylic paint, or I'm sorry, Mod Podge into the acrylic paint. And I'm going to stir them together so that way I can have that colored Mod Podge inside or on that tumbler. So if the glitter does peek through, then you're going to see that blue behind the glitter. The two glitter colors that I was torn between are Baby Blues and Blue Velvet from Glitter Heart Co. I couldn't decide which one to use, so I'm just going to mix these two and see what color it creates. I'm going to be painting on my Mod Podge and acrylic paint mixture with a sponge brush or a Mod Podge brush. I've chosen to use a small brush so I can get inside of those little tiny areas around the geode. And I think I'm going to do this in sections. I don't typically like to do adding the glitter with the Mod Podge in sections because it kind of gets a little sloppy, but I think that's going to be the best way to do this. The reason why I'm not doing the epoxy method is because it spins on the turner, and I don't want all that glitter going into that geode area. I don't know what it will do, if it will stay or if it will come out. So I'm just going to do it this way and just see what happens. So I'm going to do just the bottom first. So whenever I knock out, or whenever I glitter this tumbler, it's going to go down towards the bottom. So all that glitter is going to fall towards the bottom, and that's what I want it to, that's where I want the glitter to go, because there's no geode underneath this. And now for the glitter. It's kind of fallen down is what I want. You can see that is so pretty. It really accents that darker geode up top with that light blue, and that's what I wanted. I wanted them to kind of contrast each other to make each of them pop. So I'm going to finish up this. This is very simple. Just take your time. Just like what I did, I'm doing this kind of in sections. So I'm going to be going around those shards or the geode. Just keep adding that Mod Podge all around the tumbler. So whenever I add it up here, I'm going to add it and then kind of put my cup upside down so the glitter can fall down away from the geode. I'm going to go in with an edged paintbrush and get the tiny little areas around that geode effect. I thought the small sponge brush would be enough, but it just wasn't cutting it. So I'm just going to go around and fill in these little areas and then add that glitter, and then I'll be back. My first coat of glitter is on my tumbler. I'm going to let this dry. I'm just going to set it on my drying rack for about 30 minutes. I did put a thick coat of Mod Podge on here, so I'm going to wait until that coat is dry and then just repeat this process. I didn't do the bottom yet because I keep putting it on like right side up, so I'm waiting to do that last. Now that I have both of my glitter layers on my tumbler and is completely covered, I'm now going to take my tumbler outside and spray it with my Krylon Crystal Clear acrylic coating. I want to spray the entire tumbler with the acrylic coating, including the geode spots, because the geode spots, they have that alcohol ink on them. So I'm going to do about 2 to 3 generous coats of the acrylic sealer, and I'm focusing on the entire tumbler. After I spray that outside, I'm going to let it sit on my drying rack for about 20 to 30 minutes to make sure that it's completely sealed in, and then I'll see y'all then. I am back with my tumbler and the acrylic sealer is completely sealed on the tumbler. For my next step, I am going to be adding epoxy on this tumbler, and there's a lot of little areas that I want to pick off dried hot glue first before I do that. So if you do have some dried hot glue around your tumbler, then just pick that off. You can always use some fingernail clippers, toenail clippers, pick at it with some tweezers, or just use your fingers. So after I do that, I'm going to be applying epoxy to this tumbler. I am going to be applying 40 milliliters of epoxy for my first coat. So that's 20 milliliters part A and 20 milliliters part B, totaling 40 milliliters of epoxy. The reason why I am using so much epoxy for the first layer is because I'm going to be adding a lot of epoxy on this geode part. I'm not so worried about the glitter part. We all know that you need a lot of epoxy for the glitter anyways, but I'm probably going to be using half, if not more than half, of the epoxy on just these small geode parts. So I'll probably end up doing 40 milliliters of epoxy, adding a decal, and then adding another 20 or 30 milliliters of epoxy just to make sure this is really sealed in. So I'm going to be mixing my epoxy off camera, and then I'll return. I'm back here with my epoxy. If I sound a little funny, it's because I have my face mask on. My epoxy is completely mixed. I'm going to turn on my cup turner, and I'm just going to be applying the epoxy to the glitter areas, or at least try to first, just to make sure I have a nice seal for that. So I'm not going to be chasing my tumbler, and since it is just one color, I'm going to be dipping my gloved finger in my cup, as you see, and just applying that epoxy. Now don't worry about how thick or thin of epoxy you add right now, because this is still going to be the first coat, but I do like to add a good amount, just because when I go to apply that decal, I want a smooth area for the decal to lay. I don't want that bumpy area. So if I lay that decal, the vinyl, you can see that bumpy glitter through the decal. So I'm probably adding about 10 milliliters of epoxy to this area of the tumbler. And I'm trying to get in the little areas, the little nooks and crannies. So I'm going to start kind of adding the epoxy on that area. So I'm letting the cup go around and then just kind of hugging that geode part. So I want to really focus on that area, make sure there's a lot of epoxy there. And if you can't get inside of these areas, if you have a little silicone brush and it might be easier for you, I'm going to turn my tumbler the other way so I can get the other part of the geode. So if that will help you, then do that as well. And then I don't want to forget the bottom. So just like normal, I'm just adding the epoxy to the bottom of that tumbler. I always do the thinnest coat on the bottom, especially with my first coat, because if my tumbler happens to be a little off-centered, meaning like not parallel to the desk, then if some of the epoxy runs down, then even whenever it runs down to the bottom, it won't be as noticeable. So that's a good little trick if you haven't done it. Now that I have a pretty decent coat on the glitter part, I'm going to start putting it on the geode. And I'm just going to do it just like as I would any part of the tumbler. So I dip my hand inside of that epoxy, and I'm just rubbing that glitter on that geode section. I'm just letting that epoxy just sit where it places for right now, because it's really hard to really smooth it out. So I'm trying to just not waste the round of the turner. So I'm trying to catch the turner every time. So I want to make sure I have this completely covered. And I don't want to add a lot of epoxy in like one area, because you don't want a pool of epoxy. So once I add this epoxy, I'm going to go back and kind of look to make sure I don't have like a pool of epoxy just like chilling or just like right here it looks like. I don't want it to be just like pooled, and so it takes away kind of that geode effect, kind of sitting in the crevices. So I want that epoxy spread out. Now make sure you're getting the very bottom of the geode where it meets the bottom of the tumbler, because you need to seal that part as well. And I'm just rubbing my finger around to make sure that every part of that geode is completely sealed. And like I said, this is your first coat of epoxy. So if you don't have all of the epoxy on this tumbler, like if you miss a part, you can always go back a second time and add a little bit of epoxy, a little extra epoxy on your second round of epoxy. And I don't know if the camera's picking it up, but I can tell if my geode has been epoxy or not. So it actually does poke out a lot more. You can see if there's been epoxy placed on those rocks. So it's easier to tell. I was hoping that it would be that way, because I didn't want to kind of maybe like guess to see if I have epoxy on the area. But it really does shine whenever you add that epoxy on the tumbler. Once I'm finished applying my epoxy to my tumbler, I'm going to let it spin on the cup turner for about 4 hours. After about 4 hours, the epoxy should be sticky enough that you can turn off your cup turner. Once I turn off my cup turner, I'm going to allow the tumbler to air dry or air cure for another 20 hours. So I'm going to have this tumbler dry or air cure for at least 24 hours. So I'm going to let this tumbler air dry or air cure, and I'll see y'all in about 24 hours. I am back with my tumbler. The epoxy is completely cured, and look how cute this tumbler turned out. I have also removed any extra epoxy that was inside of the tumbler, and I've also wiped down the inside. If you have any questions or want to learn how to do that, I will be posting some help videos in my description below to walk you through that process. On my last coat of epoxy, I used about 20 milliliters of epoxy, so that's 10 milliliters part A and 10 milliliters part B, totaling 20 milliliters of epoxy. Like I told y'all before, I focus mostly on the glitter areas, and I did put a lot of epoxy around the rocks just to seal those rocks in, but I did not add any second coat of epoxy on the top of the rocks. But I did line it around the rock area. And of course, I added some epoxy to the bottom. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please be sure to give me a thumbs up for more tumbler and craft videos. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.